So market related. So over the past, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks, or since we last visited, there's been a pretty big move in interest rates, and subsequently you've heard more chatter about inflation related items. So those are two of the topics that are going to resonate with a lot of the things that we looked at today. And the first being, this idea that this recovery is probably a little bit different than recessions in the past, mainly due to the fact that past recessions have been an issue of demand, whereas this has been an issue of both demand and supply, because the supply chain has essentially been shut down along with the demand aspect of it in certain sectors. So the concern is that coming out of this, you're going to see kind of a snap influx in demand as everything opens up, while the supply chain is going to have difficulty catching up. And historically, that results in too much money chasing too few goods, or otherwise known as inflationary pressures. So we can already see here from just looking at industrial production around the world. Here is the great financial crisis. So it took much longer, or maybe not much longer, but longer for the trough to happen. But then the recovery was slow and steady, whereas during COVID, the drop was very swift, but the recovery has also been very swift on a production volume, because again, the demand can just kind of turn back on. And especially with all these stimulus payments that we have coming into the economy, people have kind of a replacement income for those who have lost their jobs, and even for people who actually haven't lost their jobs. I understand this chart's a little bit small and it may be hard to see, but this shows purchaser manager index supply delivery time. So just think about a quicker delivery time is a faster supply chain, and longer delivery times are slower supply chain. Now, I don't know why this chart is set up the way it does. It seems somewhat counterintuitive to me. But as this line goes down, it means that the delivery times are longer. So you're looking at, the gray bar is a global perspective, and then obviously the maroon or reddish purple is going to be the respective countries or regions. So here you have mainland China, not too bad compared to the rest of the world, but then you look at the US and Germany, and we see really, really long wait times for delivery. Now you're looking at input prices, so a direct corollary here to inflationary pressures that could eventually be passed on the consumer. Now, this one is pretty intuitive. As the line moves up, the prices being paid are rising. So again, China, still a little bit behind the rest of the world, but then you've got the US, and then you have Germany seeing increased input prices across the supply chain. Finally, the chart at the bottom, this shows ships that are in San Pedro Bay and in the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. A tremendous amount of freight runs through those specific ports, and you have red at anchor and then blue at berth. Basically, you can see these lines both moving up, meaning that all of the goods that are on these ships can't necessarily be offloaded and moved through the system. And that's only exacerbating the kind of delay in the supply chain that we've seen so far. So that is certainly starting to put some inflationary pressures into the market. Now, subsequently, Chairman Powell, kept a straight face yesterday and kind of, insinuated that they didn't see a lot of inflation, or the inflation that they saw was somewhat transitory in his prepared remarks. But I think we can all agree that if you go to the supermarket, or if you try to buy a home, that there's certainly inflation in the economy. It just may not be in the measurements that have historically been used through CPI.